Welcome to this month's episode of WMN Live. Every month, we dive into a fresh topic, inviting distinguished WMN members to engage in a conversation with Christine and I. Our discussions are rich with tactical advice and actionable insights designed to empower you both personally and professionally. Today, we are thrilled to introduce our phenomenal guest whose experiences and insights promise to make this episode unforgettable. Joining us first is the exceptional Kayla Gatmaitan, a loan officer at the Lending Pros. My first encounter with Kayla during the WMN panel in Vegas last year was truly memorable, especially the heartwarming moment that I shared with her and her father. Her insights and her expertise in the mortgage arena are nothing short of inspiring. Welcome, Kayla. Our next guest is the dynamic Gabi Wiartalla, the Director of Sales at Nextdoor Lending. Meeting Gabi earlier this year was a total revelation. Her journey into the mortgage industry is not only a compelling one, but it's also a testament to her potential as a future luminary in our field. A warm welcome to both Kayla and Gabi. We are so happy you have joined us today. Okay, so let's dive into our discussion. Our focus today is empowering women in the mortgage industry that is of the next generation. And last week I was teaching a class about overcoming our fear and limitations. And a woman shared with me that her biggest fear is being new in the mortgage industry. She shared how when she gets into a room filled with mortgage veterans, she kind of gets small and she thinks that she's at a disadvantage. I actually looked at her and thought to myself, that's the complete opposite. I believe she has an advantage in this market because she isn't comparing 2024 to her highlight reel of her career. With that in mind, I'd love to jump right in and get both of your thoughts on how being newer to our industry has helped you in this market and what's working right now, and how much time are you dedicating to experimenting with new approaches. Kayla, let's kick us off.
Sure. So for myself, I think of it as a clean slate. I have nothing to compare it to. It's just starting and growing from here, taking it step by step and really understanding what my capabilities are, and then knowing that I'm in a room full of, seasoned veterans where I could just learn and grow from. I see it in that perspective.
So you stay away from the comparisons and kind of looking at what others are doing. You're kind of looking at where you're taking what they're doing and then adjusting it to your own particular market, your own particular skill and uniqueness. Like, is that kind of how you're approaching it?
Absolutely. I think, as we grow in this industry, it's going to be hard to not compare yourself with others who are far beyond where you are. They've had a different starting point than you, right? And for you, everyone starts somewhere. And you have to know that you can't compare your day one to their day or year one to year 30, right? So knowing that, all you can do is embrace their trials, their tribulations, and know and grow from it and learn from their mistakes. And I've been fortunate enough to be in rooms, be in tables, elbow to elbow with amazing women, mentors, men too, in our industry that's only been pouring into me, been grateful to learn from them and really ask them questions that not a lot of people can. And so I take it as an advantage for myself to just learn and grow.
And I will piggyback on that to realize that, Kayla, what you're providing at that table is extremely valuable to the seasoned veterans also. So it really is a two-way street. And something
Right.
that all of us, to your point, whether it's year one or it's year 30, we both have so much to learn on both
Absolutely.
sides. Awesome. Gabi, let's go with the same question.
Absolutely. So just to even further support what Kayla is saying, right? When it comes to me and how I run my business and how I see my team run their business as well, is not necessarily what's worked the last 30 years, right? This is the mortgage industry. It is ever changing. The reality is the same tools in your tool belt that worked in 2020 are not necessarily the same tools in your tool belt that are going to work in 2024. And that's okay. So first, and you mentioned the young lady that you referenced first, Laura, being uncomfortable in a room. We're just in an industry where we have to, take the bull by the horns and be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Right? No, first and foremost. And then second is, again, just taking those tools that you have and realizing that different tactics work differently in this market. So one thing that I found really successful that is a shift from where we were in 2020 when things were so busy and active is not necessarily making as many surface level connections as you can, but actually taking the relationships that you do have and the relationships that you are trying to grow and investing more time, investing more of your knowledge and your emotional intelligence into those lasting relationships. Because at the end of the day, when you have a very competitive market or you're in a space where there's not as much opportunity as there was in the past, somebody's not going to remember, the fleeting connection that they made. They're going to remember somebody who invested into them and somebody who was there every step of the way. So taking advantage and making sure that you're that person in this market is what I found a lot of success with.
Wow. I love that discussion point. And I want to actually dive into that, right? So let's go back to that, what you said. In 2020, it was a numbers game, right? It was how many people you could take care of, that you could service, to be able to, working 18 hours a day and just, taking care of a vast number. But we all know in a long term, right? We all know when we really look at things, it's not the number, it's not the quantity, it's the quality that is truly going to get you through every cycle, not just the booms, but also when it's a little lower. So let's go into what both of you are doing to continue to go deeper into those relationships. Because again, I think the way you would approach it might be different than the way I will approach it or someone else will approach it. So let's kind of give some tactical advice of some things that you're doing. So Gabi, keep going along that line, and then Kayla will jump in.
Absolutely. So it really comes into partly in Kayla, I believe you mentioned this at the beginning of your discussion, that it's about using your strengths, right? You might have a different strength than somebody else, and that's okay. So for me, for example, I harp a lot on the relationship and education piece. Yes, for example, a real estate agent shouldn't know how to do all of the nooks and crannies of my job. I get it. I would never expect them to. However, taking the time to properly educate them and even just dropping the nugget of, hey, I don't expect you to explain this to our client, but I want you to know so that you're properly armed with the knowledge of whether it be a problem with a loan, what's going on, why we need something, why we're taking the approach that we're taking with the loan, right? That education piece is huge in building that relationship. And also just taking the time to ask them how you can help them, how you can help them grow their business, not just a transactional piece of, hey, what can you do for me to just get this closed as quickly as possible? And then we're done. Right? Those are just a couple things. I mean, I could go on for a long time.
But I like that line of reasoning. Okay, let's kind of go down that road, because I'm actually picturing you and I being in a transaction together, right? Where how many times we're dealing with, let's just say there's a repair on the appraisal. Okay, the appraisal comes back. There's something that the realtor is like, no, that shouldn't have been called out, right? Because of this, right? But instead of you calling and explaining just, hey, this is what the appraiser's coming back, you already had done your research. You already have the answer. You already understood the reasoning behind it. You've already had a conversation with the AMC. Like, you've kind of gone through all this. And then by the time you're having that conversation with the realtor, you're not just saying what you need. You're actually fully explaining. Not everyone goes with that approach, and not everyone wants to go with that approach, and that's okay, right? Everybody has their own unique style. But I'm picturing, Gabi, that you go deep to get the answer, know what you're speaking about, become educated on it, and then not waiting for them to say why. You already know why. You're already giving them the answer, and you're already prepared with that. What a great approach to be taking. Kayla, hand it over to you. What do you do to dive in deep and get more relational to where it's a long-standing relation?
Right. For that, you have to kind of peel it back a little, and I'm going to harp on kind of what Gabby said. And when we first had this initial conversation, it's really play to your strengths. So knowing, just from a disc profile or whatever you want to use to kind of identify what your strengths are, I know where I could play from. And from that, I need to know first how I can improve myself. And I think about it in these 4 pillars right now: skills, knowledge, your process, and really learning ways to lead generate, not just for yourself, but for your partners. And the first 2 go with me, needing to know my strengths and needing to know what knowledge I need to improve on and what skills I need to improve on. That way, when I go to my partners, when I go to my clients, I know how to use that to really play on my strengths and know, okay, if these maybe are my weak spots, how can I combat that? And something to kind of tag on what Gabby said, it's having that strategy of not only preempting what possibilities might come up or what problems might come up, framing it in a way of how you also are going to have solutions. What are the next steps to get to this? How are we going to fix this together? And that's how I've kind of seen recently, like, you need to find solutions for everyone. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
One of the skills that we all must possess in the mortgage industry is to be problem solvers. We're problem solvers. I think if you really classify what is the thing, a couple of things. Actually, I'm going to give you the second one. So the first one is you have to be a problem solver. The second one, you have to be adaptable. You have to realize that nothing is a constant. Especially in our industry, the rates aren't a constant, the production isn't a constant, there's no guarantee that it's always going to be the same. And I think when you mentioned the disc profile, I think most of us are the type of people that we don't like it when it's the same. We actually like the challenge, right? So we can't be angry when things shift around, because honestly, that's one of the reasons why we're drawn to this industry. As professionals, we like that, right? And Kayla, what you just said is really, and this ties again with being newer to the industry. You said that you pay attention to being self-aware, to knowing what things can you play to your strength and what things are maybe something that you have this awareness that, you know what, this piece is something that I want to work on. I want to get better. I find that sometimes when you've been in an industry for a very long time, we lose that because we start to, in our brains, we start saying, well, it's never worked. It never worked in the last 15 years. It hasn't worked me doing this. But honestly, is it possible it didn't work because we didn't play to our strength? Or maybe we approached it in the wrong way. So everyone listening, what Kayla just said, that is something we all need to take a page from what Kayla said and having that self-awareness, because sometimes when you're in an industry a long time, you lose that. Now, I want to jump into digital marketing, okay? And guys, just before we went live, we were in the backstage, and Kayla immediately said, okay, guys, say cheese because we're going to take a picture. I really want to go into, coming into the mortgage industry. It's obviously very different now than when I came in, that there was no social media, there was no digital presence, so it was literally a person maybe in an office, or you would go out to the baseball games and get deals and stuff, where now you have to be aware at all times of opportunities for content. For you have to be aware of sharing a piece of you. So I'd like to jump in. Gabby, give me your thoughts. We want to be tactical. We want to share some good tips and tricks and recommendations for everyone out there. Let's speak about being an originator, running a sales team right now in 2024. What are some of your tips?
You on the digital marketing side more so. Yep. You're geared toward. So I think the biggest thing, and especially as somebody who social media doesn't just naturally come to me, is getting used to the idea that it is an art form. Your art form doesn't have to be exactly like everybody else's, and that is okay. If you're trying to force something that doesn't work for you on social media just because it's the quote unquote play, you're likely not going to be as successful as you could by just being you and figuring out your own personal brand. So one thing that we've been talking about a lot is stop putting so much stress on your personal brand. Your personal brand is just who you are as a person. You're just trying to forcefully translate that to a phone screen or to a computer screen and figuring out the best way to do so. And the reason that I think that this approach is so successful and why it translates better is because it's authentic at the end of the day, right? You're not trying to play to an algorithm. You're not trying to play to a script. You're just being you. And no, a lot of times you're not going to inherently just get these magic leads that'll pop to you on Facebook or Instagram. But what it does do is build brand awareness in your community. It builds brand awareness for when your client looks up, who is my loan officer? I want to see what they look like. I want to know what they do, how, where they're working, how much business they've done. It plays to those items that are running in the background. And so that's where just personally, and I realize it's different for everybody, that I found the most success is that it's just running as a background piece to support what you're doing in your business, not necessarily something that you're grabbing, leads from just constantly on a daily basis. And that's just where personally we found a lot.
I agree. I mean, what you just described, it just happened to be an hour ago. Just an hour ago, I'm working on a project and I saw a person's name that I didn't recognize, someone in the industry. First thing I did is I went on LinkedIn and I was like, who is this person? Right? I was like, who is this person? I've never met this person. What's his deal? Now, here's the funniest part of the conversation. I went on my LinkedIn maybe 30 minutes after I looked him up. Guess what? He looked me up. So the two of us are both looking each other up because he didn't recognize my name. And he's like, who is this person? That is what's happening to your referral partners and your borrowers or your prospects or anybody else. They're going on and checking you out. They want to know, well, is Gabi falling down, drunk at a party? Or is Gabi, she's out networking and look, she's on a stage and she's on a podcast and she's an expert in her industry. People want to go and see who is Gabi and Kayla. Let me get to know them. Let me understand if they're a dog lover or they love the community that they're working in. It is important. And to your point, I think that was great advice. Don't overthink it. Don't necessarily, try to be fake about it. Make it natural, right? When Kayla took out her phone and Gabi did the same thing, like that was a moment that 100% we need to share. That's something that needs to be shared to our community. All right, Kayla, your thoughts and your philosophy and a little bit of your strategy.
Sure. So to kind of highlight on pretty much what this whole webinar is about, right? The next generation mortgage professional. When I don't have a lot of years in the business, but from going to different coaching programs, really seeking what I wanted, what I'm trying to look for, it's also combining that old school approach with a modern and really having a good representation of what a modern mortgage professional is in this industry. And a lot of that has to do with that social aspect, technological aspects, how to really advance your career and also advance your reach. I compare this to my dad all the time. He said back in the day, all we had to be was a local person in our community. Now you're competing with everyone across the nation. And so you're being searched like we just talked about with Gabi. You're being searched by your peers, by your mentors, by your competition. You have to have that presence online and offline. And one of my mentors told me, he's like, look, peel back what you know about social media. Think about it as not social media, but as looking at it as business media and really how it's supposed to be helping you with your business. If you're just posting videos and putting content out there to be an influencer, great, maybe this isn't really the industry for you. But what you want to do is be able to have those presence, have those connections online and take it offline. A lot of the times we have strategies, and one of the tactical things I'm trying to do is really not just post and ghost, but really engage with my audience, knowing that also majority of my clients right now are on social media, are researching who they're working with, wanting to know that little bit of that personal and authenticity of who I am, as well as, okay, who is Kayla and what does she have to offer? And then now what they see has to match with what they hear from me when we have our meetings, when I show them what to do, how to lead them through the process.
I think you just touched on something very, very important. What is on social media or your business media has to mirror who you really are.
Exactly.
I can't tell you how many times people have said to me when they meet me, "Oh my God, you're actually the same person that I see online." And I'm like, who else did you expect? Like, who did you think was going to show up? But yet there is a disconnect a lot of times. And people say, oh, well, that was just what you were putting out to get people to be drawn to you, or that make it look like you're the influencer, right? And that's a mistake. That is not a business strategy. So very, very, very good point, Kayla. Okay, so this is the Women's Mortgage Network, and this is our live program. And of course, we can't possibly go through this discussion without asking the question of, listen, our industry has certainly evolved an awful lot. And I'll tell you, since the days of when AIME first started and the Women's Mortgage Network started, I have seen so much positive advancement of women leaders and women loan officers and owning brokerage and everything. I mean, I've been so proud. But there's still some challenges, and there are some things that, especially as a younger woman in this industry, is unique. And I'd love to get your thoughts on that, because I'll be honest, I've said it publicly that when I was a younger woman coming up in the industry, I wouldn't go to conferences because it was so uncomfortable as a young woman. I didn't go. I didn't go until later in my career because it was just that terrible. Luckily, there's been lots of advancements, and that isn't the case anymore. But I'd love to hear from your perspective. So, Gabi, kick us off.
No problem. So, of course, I think that obviously it's no secret. Everybody faces different challenges, and this is still a male-dominated industry. That doesn't mean that we don't have a place in it, and it doesn't mean that we can't thrive. And I think the biggest thing that I've acknowledged is it's okay for me to do it a different way. Right? Just because it's challenging doesn't mean that it's not worth doing. Anything in life worth doing is challenging. Let's take it out of even the mortgage industry. That's just the reality of it. No matter what career field you are trying to excel in, it's going to be tough, and that's okay to acknowledge. So my biggest thing is, at least on how I've tried to grow myself, my business, my position, whatever it be in this industry, is to not do it somebody else's way. It's to do it my way and to play to my own strengths and realize that I might have to have conversations a different way than a man would. And that's okay. That is okay to do it that way. I have different strengths, and there's nothing wrong with using them to win the same prize and to get to the same place. I just try to keep myself where I'm not naive in the way of thinking that I need to do something exactly like how somebody else has always done it to see the same results.
I love that answer. Love, love, love. Kayla.
So for me, to piggyback off of Gabi, yes, we have to not compare to, just to compare. Compared to my other previous brokerage, I was probably the only woman loan originator in the office. And for me, it might have been intimidating, but I thought of it as a great advantage because they have something that they probably look at it in one way and in one perspective. I come in with a different approach. I come in with a different mentality, and I know how to maybe relate and communicate to partners and to our clients differently with them that they can't, and really maybe have more empathy that sometimes people don't have, or have certain ways to just communicate. And just to kind of...
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to touch on last year too. You talked about conferences and probably feeling timid and scared to go. It's funny because last year I got invited to talk at Fuse, and I remember I was still shocked. It's my second year in the business, and I thought this was a joke email when I first saw it come through. And I remember I was in disbelief, and I was like, okay, we're going to Fuse. Long story short, things happened where unfortunately none of my coworkers could attend, and I was going solo. And I was a little timid at first, but I knew I just had to be in a position, be open-minded. And it really helped that I had, again, the women network. And that's how we kicked off the whole week of events, right? And really having those people to talk to get information from. It was inspiring knowing that other people came to me too. And I never thought I would inspire anyone, especially being so early in to my career. And it was really nice that even after that event at Fuse, I have still kept in touch with a lot of the people I've met. And I think that just goes to show that it's building that momentum, building that camaraderie between us women, and really helping grow and expand our network in this mortgage industry.
That's wonderful. And it is overwhelming. It's scary. And Gabby said it when she said, just get comfortable with being uncomfortable. But exactly. You said yes to it and you went for it. And now you're confident to where you can help someone else the next time when it's their first time, right? So now you're able to do that. So when you were speaking about the do it, being the only woman sometimes or in a different situation and having that fresh perspective, it was reminding me of a conversation I had with a woman broker owner about 2 years ago. She had a gentleman that worked on her team, and she was explaining to me that she was struggling with this particular person, almost to the point that she thought she had to make a break with that particular person, right? And what happened, and this is why it popped in my brain that I really need everybody to realize this, that she was trying to think that he should do business the way she was doing business. So I know a lot of times, yes, there's less women in the industry. So sometimes it's a little weird because, of course, we're dealing with a lot of gentlemen. And so we look like we're doing business completely different. But we sometimes say, well, that person doesn't understand. But we also have to be reminded that other people also get to do business their particular way. It works both directions. So Kayla, your approach of saying, okay, I'm here, I'm bringing my perspective, and I'm also listening and paying attention to theirs. And that's the whole point. Collectively, all of us together get to bring all of these different strengths and all of these different insights to make us stronger. And that's the whole goal. Ladies, this has been incredible. I want to have one last question as we wrap up, okay? What are some tips for the audience of how we can become the loan officer for life for that family? I want to know your after a loan closes, right? How do you stay in touch? How do you continue to bond with them? How do you continue to be that loan officer and financial advisor for the rest of generations to come? Because it's not just how do we get the business, but how do we then stay bonded to that family? Gabby.
So this is there's a lot of different ways to do it, but where I really feel like it comes from a genuine place is, yeah, I tell them I'll check in on them when they need a refinance. But if that's the only reason I'm ever reaching out is when I think I'm going to get business from them, it's just disingenuous at the end of the day. The clients will see right through it all the time. So the little tiny things really do add up to the big things. So things like a closing gift as soon as you close. Right? A little tiny box. We have a service that we use in particular where we choose a box for our clients. It goes out right after closing. And then when you are checking in on them, you have certain checkpoints, of course, but even just seasonally, remind them to change their air filters. Check in and ask how their kid's soccer game was. Just be like, hey, I was thinking, I hope, through the change of the season, you're enjoying summer at the new house. Ooh, I hope the water heater hasn't gone out. Like, ha, ha, ha. Have you had any issues? Any big utility bills come up? it creates a touch point where you're not just checking in on them for their loan. You're genuinely seeing how things are going with their home and their transaction. And naturally, because it's a more genuine reason, a genuine conversation, those snowball into, hey, I have a referral. Hey, I'm thinking about taking money out of my home. Hey, we're selling and I'm looking to purchase a new one. Can you help us with that transaction too? Is that doable? Right? You're always staying front of mind with these little things that really do add up to the big things.
Completely agree. Kayla.
I agree with Gabi 100%. For me, early on, I knew I needed systems in place for me to continue that relationship. I always tell my clients, this is not the last time you're going to hear from me. This is only the beginning of our relationship. And with that, I've adopted a system where it's really having certain touch points right after the transaction. So right after a 7-day call, a 30-day call, a 6-month review, and then an annual mortgage review. Spot on every time. And from that, I could just touch on last week, I had a 6-month call with one of my clients. And, she had some concerns. She first time home buying. So she got her tax bill, just had questions about it. So really explaining, taking the time to go through, answering everything she had. Also giving her updates of, we just want to make sure your insurance, we all know insurance are going crazy right now. So making time to really making sure that she's adequately covered and looking that, I'm not just here to talk about like the next refi opportunity, which I didn't even bring up. She brought up to me, and always knowing that, yes, I'm keeping track of where the market is and when it's the right time to refinance for you, when it makes sense. Also knowing that from there, I'm looking at not just a transactional standpoint, but really helping them all throughout their whole financial picture, and seeing where there might be some spots or some leaks where we could really patch that up and really make it a whole picture for them. And with that being said, what I mean, it's really looking at, I've noticed, another client is starting to acquire more properties, and they've outgrown their tax person and, had some discrepancies, and having that opportunity to also refer out my referral partners now, who I trust, just knowing who they are, what they're trying to do, and also seeing what would be compatible, right? Maybe someone who's more of a tax strategist. And so I'm doing all of these things, not just for my clients, but also for my referral partners too, to show that I'm looking out for both parties. And with that, it's also knowing that, like Gabi said, when you clear out your air filters. For me, in California, you've had a lot of floods lately the past few months, and it's gotten to a point where, it was pouring rain. I decided to just, on my day to call my database, making sure everyone was okay. Hey, just wanted to see if there was any leaks in your property. About 2 or 3 of them actually reached back saying they had some concerns. I was able to get them in contact with someone who specializes in fire and water restoration. And then also knowing, hey, because of the damages that were done, maybe I think this is the push that we need to actually do the renovations we've been talking about. So having opportunities just from engaging with them and just talking and seeing truly that you care and concern for their well-beings as well as for the financial well-being.
I really love that approach. And it kind of reminds me of what you did when you took a picture for social. So you're approaching everything as, where's the opportunity in here? Okay. Instead of saying, oh, it's raining again, you're like, oh, this is a reason I can reach out to my database, showing care, showing concern, having a discussion point, and what you mentioned about the referral partners. Guys, I will tell everyone out there, just like they're going on social to check you out, to see, who you are. When you're able to say, I have an expert that I can provide you with, somebody for restoration, water damage or fire damage or something, or the CPA, the tax accountant, the energy efficiency evaluator, whatever, right? Whatever that is, look at how you are viewed by that family. All of a sudden they're like, oh my goodness, I have the best person, Gabi, Kayla, these people have this network of experts that they can refer me to. You're all the way raised to a higher level of expertise Everyone write that down. That is a takeaway. That is something where a couple of things. Look for those opportunities, create that network, have that network of the great insurance place, the great, all of these different things, because people really want your advice. You are the trusted advisor for life, for generations to come. So when those kids grow up and it's time for them to get married, and now it's, okay, I have our person. I don't need to go shopping around. I don't need to go looking online. I have the person that took care of our family and our home, right? Our home, not just a house, the home for all these years. So great advice. All right, ladies, this has been incredible. Thank you so much for kicking off our first WMN Live that we brought back with such passion, promise, and enlightenment. Be sure, everyone, to join us next month on May 8th when Christine Beckwith leads the discussion on making arrangements and agreements and creating a home harmony. If anyone would like to give us some topic ideas, feel free to put them in the comments or email Jennifer at aimegroup.com. We truly appreciate your time. Keep shining brightly, everyone. And thank you, Kayla and Gabi.
Thank you.
Thank you.